two, you know, those trucks that they climb the ladder up on? They fell over.
Yes, I am.
Oh, perfect.
You didn't hear none of that.
Oh, we'll start our work session and see if we can move things along.
Oh, just come on up here and join us.
Hadn't seen y'all in a couple of days. Y'all looking good.
Really?
My hair keeps saying.
I thought I saw you this morning.
Well, you can't see him in the morning after the afternoon?
I know. I know.
Y'all spying? Because I don't know.
Well, you said Dorothy.
Where were you?
Oh, well,
I'm back at you.
Okay, so where were you?
oh, I've just been in that boardroom since, I don't know when y'all locked me in there. You know, it was somewhere in there. All right, a couple things we got through it. Okay, so, go with the regular agenda. So we have approval of the minutes from April 13th, work
Mayor.
session, regular session.
Just remember that Chris Pike is online, and if there are questions about his items, he will be getting off at 7. So I didn't know if you wanted to speak to him first. He sent out an email earlier about his
Yeah, I haven't read
item.
any emails today, so I have no idea.
Well, I mean, earlier, a few days ago. But just because he's got the P card tonight, the FSA, the flexible spending account plan, and
Chris,
the
that's item 9.
item 3, item 4, item 15.
Okay, but the purchasing card policy, he's talked about that before, right?
Yes, sir. It's just if y'all had any additional questions.
Well, let's just start with that, Chris. Are you online, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? We know it was explained to us before about the purchasing card policy. Has anything changed since you explained it to us the first time?
No, sir, not at all.
Okay. Anybody have any discussion points for that, Ms. Knight?
None currently.
Okay. Ms. Dean?
No questions?
Qual?
No, sir.
Ms. Tran?
I'm good with that.
Okay. And then the P card agreement, that basically was the little credit card, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's just the agreement with the bank for the same thing, right?
Yes, sir.
That is correct, yes.
Any issues with that, Ms. Knight?
None. And so, to understand clearly, kind of recap, I know we discussed it before, but it's always kind of good to resurrect the conversation. This is something that you observe, Chris, that would help better control spending through the actual setup of the card itself.
That is correct, yes.
Other questions?
I'm good.
Ms. Dean?
Yeah. No, I see on there that is it noted on the, agenda that it's 2021-04? Is that the?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. The number the purchasing card ordinance number is 2021-04.
And I'm okay with,
Okay. Mr. Vaughn?
No, I have no questions.
Ms. Tran?
I'm good.
Okay. Let's start with item number 4. This is where you're talking about compensation study through Archer for $13,500. Tell us a little bit about what we...
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am?
I'm sorry, but we have not gone through the review of the meeting minutes section at the beginning of the agenda.
I understand it. I'm moving the agenda around. Chris is going to be online for just a minute, so I'm trying to get the things that are relevant to the finance officer first.
Okay.
All right, item 4.
Yeah, so, Mr. Mayor, the pay classification compensation plan, you'll recall a couple months ago, I indicated that a city similar size to us in Cobb County was going through a study, and that study will be released really soon, which will give us a good idea of where we stand as far as our pay structure and competitiveness. Now, obviously, Cobb and Clayton are decent decent amount apart. They're somewhat close, but somewhat distant as well. So the question is whether we should do our own study in addition to that. So I reached out and solicited quotes. I tried to get quotes from 8 different providers that I knew of, and 4 of them responded. The lowest response that I received was from Archer for $13,500. I read through the proposal. All 4 proposals were certainly qualified and addressed the scope that we were wanting to achieve. And there was no advantage for the higher priced one. So my recommendation would be either to not do it at all or go with this lower quoted one for $13,500. And whether we do one of our own or not is entirely at the board's discretion on whether or not y'all want to do that.
Well, when did you say the first one was going to be back, the Cobb County State?
That one should be back any day now. I know they're wrapping it up, and obviously they don't want to release anything to anybody until it's completely finished. But it should be done very soon. I would suspect we're talking about a week or 2, not a month or 2. I definitely think we'll have it in the month of May. If we proceed with the Archer compensation study, that one will probably be about 3 to 4 months, so we'll be looking at that towards the end of summer. And there's nothing to say we can't look at both. It's just whether or not you want to pay to do our own or just rely on another city's report.
Okay, good question. Mr. Mayor?
So I guess, based on your memorandum, this is something that we didn't budget in fiscal year 21. So is your suggestion to budget for it in the upcoming fiscal year? Maybe the course of events, because we are still kind of in a holding pattern and understanding where we are for the fiscal year 21 budget anyway. Requests have been made, and I understand it's a work in progress. For a higher level view of understanding where we are, maybe this is something to consider for fiscal year 22, just to kind of line things up in a way that makes sense, especially if it wasn't something that we budgeted for in fiscal year 21, and we are still wanting to have a clear understanding of where we are, even though fiscal year 21 is about to end, but we still want a better handle on what we're spending, because we have a separate silo, everything's spinning at the same time, and let's hope that, it all collides together and makes sense. You understand what I'm saying? That's my thought.
I do, and I think that's certainly a noteworthy comment. I would suggest if the desire is to include this in FY22's budget, we could go ahead and execute the contract and let them know we want the work to begin July 1st. But to go ahead and continue through the paperwork, since we've got quotes and expiration dates on those. There's no reason why we couldn't go ahead and get it started. Just let them know that we're going to be paying for it and getting the work done next fiscal year, and then I can include that $13,500 in next year's budget.
Okay, let me ask this question, Chris. I know that the money coming from the federal level has certain qualifications to it, and some of that is related to salaries and things along those lines. Would a pay survey like this be something that would qualify under that event?
Probably not directly, but recall one of the provisions of the money that's going to be coming to us is to make whole the decline in revenues from previous years. And what we do with that money is at our discretion. So let's say, just for simplistic numbers, we made $5 million 2 years ago, and we only made $4 million now. We could use up to $1 million of that to bring us back up to the prior year levels, and then use that money for that $1 million for whatever we wanted. So in that respect, yes, we could use those funds for that purpose. But I don't think there's specific allowances in there just for this
No,
of that other.
trade still work, because we budgeted at the lower level, we've got expenses at the lower level supposedly. You know, and again, this might not be something that we normally would try, but if we got funds that kind of, you know, showed up, the real question would be, is it something we think we need? And if it's something that we need, whether we move the ball around a little bit or not, then certainly that would be money that would qualify. In other words, we didn't expect it, but, you know, you know, there were several discussions when we talked about paying our employees, and, which is an asset, right? That's one of the assets we have, like tables and chairs, skill sets matter. I don't know that Cobb County is gonna be that far off, but we know it's gonna be tailored to some other city. And if you have something that's tailored directly to you, I think that would reduce some of the anxiety. In other words, you know, are we doing enough? You know, and I doubt seriously anybody's gonna say we're doing too much, you know, but, you know, I'd like to know where the ball's at. And some federal resources wasn't expected. If it's available, would that make you feel more comfortable this time?
To some degree, because again, my discomfort level is still the cleanup and the catch-up that has to be done to get us to understand in the month of April where we are. I still feel kind of out of sorts with that. So if there's the opportunity to schedule and defer the payment, you know, on the books technically, you know, maybe that's how we do it, because I do
And that would
understand.
still work, because then
Yeah.
by then we'd have federal funds in our pocket.
We would have the federal funds and hopefully a better understanding of where we landed for fiscal year 21.
Christine?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because I do wanna see, as we discussed, Saturday, you know, some parameters and something so we can know where we are. And, you know, that way we'll know what we have going forward and where we wanna go. So I think, to get ourselves in a position to where everybody understand, you know, our situation, our, you know, scope of what we're doing, how we're gonna do it and all of that. I think, some things the things we need to do right now. we do that right now. Things that we can do, our little room, or whatever. I'd like to, you know, do a little housekeeping, have a little.
Don't talk to us.
I have no idea.
Ms. Tran?
She maybe?
Van?
I didn't realize that I was on mute, sorry. I agree with the opinion of Council Knight and Council Lee.
So you pass it tonight with a July time period, or you defer it until later?
So you said the estimates for the survey, there's an expiration on it?
Yeah, anytime we get a quote that involves professional services, they're gonna have this quote is only good for a certain amount of time, because obviously they don't want you coming back 10 years from now saying, hey, I wanna take you up on this offer.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they'll always put expirations in there, typically 90 days. I haven't looked at all 4 of these that we received, but I suspect they're all around the 90-day mark, which means we could start in July and still be okay with the study if we wanted to do that.
Yeah, I would say let's put it in July.
Yeah, so so the question is, are we going to go ahead and approve for the services this evening, but then go ahead and move it to be budgeted and paid for out of fiscal year 22? So I think we
Yeah,
can,
and that would be my recommendation.
yeah, I think we can do that.
You good with that? Good? Well,
I'm okay with that.
Ms. Tran?
Yeah, I'm look at that.
All right, so that's just a matter of how we word that.
Item 3.
Well, actually, isn't it item 2?
Well, I was just saying, one of Chris's items is item 3.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm trying to write down here in
Oh.
the notes so that it's,
You know, when we get there.
I think we've got a way to make that work. Okay. Then, okay, talk a little bit about the flexible spending plan, which I assume is related to the health, because it's written there, right?
Yes, that is correct. So we currently have a plan in place right now with a service provider. This is to provide employees with some pre-tax dollars to pay for medical expenses such as co-pays and deductibles and even some over-the-counter type things, knee braces and CPAP machines and that sort of stuff. So the provider that we're currently using is charging more and providing less than this new provider. One of the things I asked our broker to do is to look at all of our service providers, and this one they've come back with 3 options that are all better than our incumbent. This is the one that I like the best, and there's really not a lot to this one. It's basically the employees can use these monies, and then we take out the amount in their paycheck each pay period for the amount that they've elected for the course of the year.
So this is something we're already doing, and basically what we're doing is trying to get a better deal.
Yes, sir. We're paying $5 per month per employee right now. The WEX one that I'm recommending is $4.15 per employee per month. So we're not talking about a huge amount of savings, but it's really more about the service at this point. It's a little bit cheaper and a lot better.
Okay. Any questions? Ms. Smith?
So the impact of the savings, I guess with the current service agreement that we have, I guess you could say with, is it WageWorks? When will the savings hit? Is it what has been budgeted fiscal year 21 versus what we're going to move forward to in fiscal year 22? How does this agreement fall?
Yeah, so we'll run the clock out on this fiscal year with the current provider. It does not make sense to switch providers mid-year. And then we'll start with WEX Health on July 1st. So we'll start using the new provider in a couple of months.
Okay.
Ms. Dean, questions?
So for employees who have currently have the balance on flexible saving account of this fiscal year, have the balance, would it be rolling over to the new company as well?
No, for this fiscal year, the amount that carries over, and I think it's for like 60 days or something like that, the amount that carries over, they would still file those with WageWorks. The new fiscal year, starting in FY22, those are the expenses that they would file with WEX. So let's say, for example, you incur a medical expense in the month of June, and you turn in your receipts in July. You would turn those receipts into WageWorks because that is an FY21 expense. If you incur an expense in July and you turn in your receipts in July, that would go to WEX. And we'll educate our employees to make sure they understand which one goes to which. And both WEX and WageWorks, they're not going to take in an expense if it's not for the right year.
So with the current current plan, if your contribution is not used by the end of the fiscal year, it will be rolled over to the next year. Now we can make this change. Will the balance by the end of June this year will be rolled over to the new company?
No, the balance for fiscal 21 will stay with wage work. So anything that you file for FY 21 would go to wage works, even if it's after the new year. And then anything with the new plan would go to the new provider.
So what balance with the current WageWorks one? How long the employee has to reimburse their medical expense?
I'll have to look and I can get you that answer. It's either 2 months or 2.5 months. I can't remember exactly which one, but you've got either 60 days or about 75 days to get all your reimbursements turned in.
That is under normal circumstance. We're talking about the time that how much that somebody has expected and contribute with their flexible saving, and that will make the changes kind of ruin their plan. Because if they have the balance and by the end of the fiscal year they don't have that much of medical expense to incur prior to year end. So is there anything we could do about that for employees to be fair?
Well, that's the thing that we always try to educate the employees and understand about the flexible spending plan. The flexible spending plan is a use it or lose it plan. So you have to make sure you use those benefits by the deadline, or else you actually lose out on that and you can have forfeited dollars. So we always, and I recently sent an email to the employees, I think in February, letting all the employees know who had balances that weren't taking any deductions so far this year, reminding them that the dollars do expire and that they need to use it. And we've been working with the employees to make sure that happens.
With WageWorks, I think the contribution of this year can be accumulated to the following year. But since we are not longer, if we make this change, that won't happen. So what would we do for that circumstance for employees?
Yeah, like I indicated, those employees, we need to make sure we communicate this to them and let them know the FSA plan is a use it or lose it plan, and that they need to use those dollars. We don't need to have, we can't have dollars that just keep going every year over and over again, because that's expense to the city and no savings to the employee. So we work with the employees to make sure they understand their balances and make sure they understand the deadlines to get those reimbursements turned in.
Chris, I think what she's implying is that it actually does carry over. Is that correct?
It does carry over with our current provider. It's not changed by the end. I think they allow $500 carry over every year.
Right, and now that the expiration, they're going to have that there won't be a carryover. They'll have 2.5 months or 2 months to use up their remaining dollars, but you won't just indefinitely continue to be able to carry over dollars over and over again. We want employees to use these benefits because it costs the city money to provide them. We want to make sure the employees use those dollars and that they don't just keep carrying the dollars over year after year. We want them to be used, and we'll make sure that the employees understand how much time they have to use those dollars. And I've looked at the reports, and nobody has a lot of money that hasn't been used yet. But we'll make sure everybody understands the deadlines of when to get their receipts and reimbursements turned in.
What I'm saying is that if we did not change the plan, the employee would have another year to spend. Now, if we make the decision to change the plan, they suddenly have 2.5 months to spend that. And spending on medical is not like a normal spending. It depends on your health records, or depend on a lot of factors. So with that, it shortens the opportunity of 9.5 months of spending to restore the fund that they contributed. So what would we do with it?
Yeah, and my answer doesn't change there. I understand what you're saying. My answer doesn't change. I personally don't feel we need to keep Because some of the money that's been carried over has been carried over for a long time, and the employees aren't spending it, they aren't using it, yet we're paying $60 a year for them to sit there and not use it. That, to me, needs to stop. We need to have employees who utilize this plan. It's a good plan, but it's only good if we use it. It doesn't help the employee to basically have that money out of their paycheck and never use it. And it doesn't help the city to pay monthly fees to continue using it. So I understand what you're saying, and I have been working since February to make sure employees understand that they need to be using these dollars. Some of them didn't even know that they still have money in the account, and that's why they weren't spending it. So my recommendation, no matter who we stay with, is that the plan needs to stop the indefinite carryover of those dollars.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
Ben, did you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I will go into, so, okay. I hear what you say, that the plan changing doesn't allow the employee to have a year like they expected to without no chance. In that regard, it will affect employees who have who count on the current plan. So have you checked and looked at the balance of who have and notify everyone?
Yes, I have. As indicated, I told the employees back in February that, especially those that did not have anything that didn't have any activity other than their opening balance that has been continued to carry over.
You said you sent it in February. I think I have to look. I don't think I have received your email reminding about that. It's reminding email about that.
All right. Let's ask, Chris has got to go in a second. Ms. Dean, questions? Mr. Kwok?
No, sir.
And your answer is still the same, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Because I have flexible spending account and I have never received, I don't record this as reminding email stuff.
Yeah, I don't think you had any dollars that were carried over from the prior year that were unspent. Those are the ones that I discussed.
Yeah, I have this on the contribution of this current year. So I'm thinking employee who is similar with my case, they don't expect us to change the plan. So whatever we contributed, 2.5 months is not enough time, only if you is severely sick unexpectedly. But in normal circumstance, it's a very short amount of time.
Yep, I understand, and I hate to do this, but I really do have to go. I understand your question. All 3 times, my answer is the same. I do think we need to, stop the carryover year over year. If council's comfortable spending $60 a year for employees who aren't using the service, that's certainly at your discretion. Y'all can continue to do that. It would not be my recommendation to do that. So,
Thanks,
I can
Chris.
follow up a little bit more with Sylvia and council on the dollar amounts in question without providing the employees' names and letting you see. But we're really talking about a few employees that have these carryovers. So, all right.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Chris.
everyone.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But Mayor, actually, and I see that it was left off of the review of the meeting agenda in our changes earlier this week, but number 8 on your regular meeting agenda, which is the Peachtree Recovery Service for Public Property Insurance Recovery. That was also an item from Chris, so it was about hiring somebody that would look through old accidents and try to reclaim some of the money that was due to us. It wouldn't be an expense to us, but they would take 18% of any claims they recovered.
Didn't we talk about that?
We talked about that last week, but if you need more information tonight, since he had to leave, you can either obviously move forward with approving it or defer it, whichever you choose. But I did want to point out that was another item that.
Well, I think the easy answer there is if nobody's chasing the money, it's never going to get collected.
That's right, yes, sir.
So
Leave it on the
it may
agenda.
not be a bad idea. All right, so let's go back to the regular section there. So review the minutes. So we've got the April 13th regular meeting minutes, the April 13th work session minutes, the March 23rd regular minutes. Questions on any of those? And you have those in front of you, right?
Yes,
And I think the.
yes, I have a few.
Go ahead. Go ahead, man.
Yes, I have few concern on the accuracy of the meeting minutes. The first one is the regular meeting minutes on March 23rd. So it's let me see, in section 5, questions and answers. And I sent every council an email about this along with city manager, city clerk, and city attorney. And also it come along with the reference on the video recording of the meeting minutes and the time frame when that discussion happened. So it misstated several facts. The question that were asked for the city attorney last night was not stated accurately. The accuracy should have been the first question, can the council pass an ordinance to have the mayor appoint the chairperson versus the charter indicates that the board member will nominate the chairperson. The attorney responds that she will look into the concern and will give the formal review. But the meeting minutes say something not quite like that. And the second question was when the city is required to hire a licensed contractor, but the city is not, what are the risks for the city and what are the risks when the city doesn't comply with state law? The attorney also said she will go into research and give the answer. The meeting minutes doesn't reflect that. And the third item is, the third question is what is the city of Morrow government form? The attorney answer will go into research and council can also say the city attorney can come back to the next meeting or give a written answer to everyone. That wasn't stated in the meeting minutes. That's for the first one. And the second one is the regular meeting minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Now the city
Yeah.
doesn't do verbatim minutes. Okay. General concepts. Somebody's listening to a tape. Are there? The votes are the critical portion. What you do and what you don't do. That's the one that's registered, and that's the only one we're even required to have. So as long as somebody knows what it is we're doing or not doing, certainly anybody can watch the video if they so choose. So it wouldn't be totally unreasonable to say somebody paraphrase what you want. If there's something else you want, then paraphrase what it is. We've done that literally since you got here. And I don't know that anybody's ever, given a lot of feedback one way or another. In other words, I don't think anybody's been denied a request to make a change. We've deferred motions or deferred minutes in the past. So instead of pointing out what is missing, if you've got something you want to add, I think you've got plenty of time to do so. And I'd still offer you the same opportunity to say, write what it is you want, unless we disagree with what you just said.
But Mayor, if I may, so I do disagree with some of what's been said, so I need to make sure, like if we did a transcription, there are 9 pages. And so there are a lot of things that were said, one of which is when Councilwoman Tran does ask about the form of government, she's the one that asked for to have it written. That's not what the attorney says back. But y'all can put anything you want in the public meeting. My direction, or what I was asking her to understand is, I shouldn't be changing it based on what she understands it to be. That's why I did the transcription. And so if y'all want to insert the whole 9 pages, y'all can do that. if Van wants to introduce the language tonight and y'all wanna vote on it, but we would never add that, like, it's one thing if you say, hey, you left this out of the motion, we go back and listen to the video and clearly it was left out before you approve the minutes. But for one council person, any of you to put language in, it would not happen before the meeting, you would do it during the meeting. So I just wanna make sure we're clear about that.
Have you submitted what you want, Van?
No, it wasn't what I want, so I was going to say, let's defer the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting for April 12th.
It's April 13th.
What else? And then the March 13th to be approved for the next council meeting. One of the meeting minutes needs to be amended for is that the one in January 26th regular meeting. The draft say the motion.
Yeah, don't go on to the next one yet. Don't go on to the next one yet. That was a little more complicated. Let's stick to the ones that we got. All right.
Yeah, so that's one, because that is on the separate item on the agenda, saying that we amend the meeting minutes. So my
Is there any objection to deferring
this one is a quick one.
the approval minutes?
This one is a quick one because the minutes say require general contractor to oversee the work.
Which 7 minutes are you talking about, man?
I'm just going to borrow everyone 1 minute.
Well, I know, but which 7 minutes are you talking about?
Say.
Which 7 minutes?
April 13th.
Where's
I'll
that?
tell you what.
It does say general contractor is required to oversee the work.
It is.
And
Oh, it
again,
doesn't say
whatever you guys
required
want to change, you have to do it in the meeting, I'm not doing it.
Okay, let's do this.
Someone
We'll
else?
defer
Just talking to someone.
all three,
Let's defer.
and you just basically need to tell us what it is you think you want.
In the meeting, in the next
We'll
meeting.
just write it down. And unless somebody has an objection to it, if they have an objection to it, we'll do the objection. If they don't have an objection to it, we'll just call it. Does that work? Okay, the next one is a little bit more interesting, because we've got a January 26, 2021 regular minutes that were unanimously approved by this entire city council. And now we want to go back and make an amendment. That's extremely rare.
That was the 26th, January 26th.
January 26th.
And it's extremely rare when written minutes is missed what we voted for, misstatement what we voted for, and I found it was really strange. But I believe we have an obligation to fix whatever we didn't do right, and talking about this to avoid this from happening in the future. But the open meeting rules require draft of the meeting minutes should be delivered 2 days after the meeting happened, and I would say let's put that in practice so every of us have a chance to have a look at what happened within 2 days. It's still fresh, and we will be able to capture all of what it is, so avoid this from happening.
So let's start with this.
And we will be applying the rules.
So let's say something happened at today's meeting that, I figured it out, a month from now. Oops, sorry. Me, I'm not exactly all, perfectly spoken. Maybe I said it wrong. And we just passed it because things happen. At the end of every council meeting, I've got comments. So I could ask for the comments to be entered into the record that said, let it reflect that January 21st, this is what was supposed to be stated versus what was actually stated. Pretty simple, right? It's all in the official minute. If you do it the other way and you start opening up different minutes for different times, especially in something that has not been jammed down anybody's throat, it was unanimously approved. Okay? Now the staff has to go back through and spend an enormous amount of their time and effort to be able to correct something that we all had a chance to at least look at one way or the other. I think everything has limits. It's not hard to waste somebody else's time, but at some point you just have to say, we know we do not do verbatim minutes. We know that. We know we're trying to operate a city and move things forward. We know everyone has the right to a vote. You can disapprove if that's what you wish. You know, but I don't know that this one is relatively recent, but what would keep you from going back to last year or 5 years ago for that matter? And I think at some point, you just have to say, I don't think anybody in the public feels like we're trying to get somebody over on something, you know? And then did we actually do what we said we were gonna do? In other words, was it a general contract, a licensed contract hired? Yes, it was. You know, so it's like trying to tell me that the page numbers don't matter. You can be technically correct. I agree. But is it the wisest use of the time of everything that we have? I don't know that it is, and I'm not saying there wouldn't be something out there that might be extremely critical. You know, we've got some votes that really do matter to maybe other people besides us. And I'd certainly, if somebody said bond counsel or somebody told us something in the contract that maybe we needed to clean it up, we've seen that happen before. I'm not so sure that's the best use of your time. There's a lot more going on, especially if part of our argument is we're not consistently getting things done in a timely fashion. It's awful hard to complain if we're out there making life miserable for folks at the same time they're not accomplishing what we're trying to get them to accomplish. But, you know, so in my opinion, I just call it as it is and let it stand. But let's see what the opinion of the council is. Ms. Knight.
I would say we are public servants, and what is doing, we already get the city attorney advice on the correction, and we can do that. I would say we should be protect public benefits by making the correct the meeting minutes that misstated what happened, what discussed, and what being approved to do.
Ms. Knight.
And I understand that this will take a little bit of the time to do for the staff, but that shouldn't happen to begin with.
Ms. Knight.
I mean, a minute ago, I'm okay with deferring until all the clarity is provided so that we can move on and approve at the same time. I'm good with that.
On this one, this was not a regular meeting. This is where on January 26th, on
I
item
see the
2,
regular meeting.
that was basically unanimously approved by the city council. And now
And
we've got a
so
member
the
asking you
changes-
to amend it and go back and make changes to
And
and
what
approve
is
it.
in red is what
Yes,
we're
ma'am.
saying?
Yeah. I think that's how it's written.
Yeah, because there's only one line in it.
Yeah.
Just the requirement for general contract.
And for this project,
We hired a general contractor.
we hired a general contractor.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't even think we were legally required to have a general contract based on the city.
Well, because the motion,
Well, the motion
Yeah.
did, but I'm talking state law.
oh yeah,
didn't require
statewide,
it.
no, state law, no.
But on that one, we just simply did it to make the project work.
I think with regard to these minutes, it kind of comes out in the wash. I mean, based on, we've approved the minutes
On January 26th, that's correct.
for January 26th, and we have approved a general contractor for that amount for $50,640. So, I mean, I guess we can move on.
Ms.
And we
Deacon?
do have had a general contract.
Right, we do have a general
So
contract.
just, you
So
know,
remember, because the person who was doing the work was not a general contractor, we had to hire a contractor
mhm.
to oversee their work. So
I
that 50,000 was the Mia quality. We had to hire a general contractor to oversee their work because that was a decision made by council, and that's what we did.
That's correct. But legally, we couldn't
That
have
will
the
change
first
the
section.
decision that's been approved by the council, because the council approved for that project to be that certain amount. Now it appears that we hired the general contractor to oversee that. That's why I'm just suggesting, I'm
But
just
you're the one who
saying
made
that.
the motion to do it,
Yeah,
man.
we all approve for the meeting minutes that misstated the fact what we approved for, but now we discover that we misstated that. I would say let's take our responsibility, go ahead and correct it to meeting minutes.
It's-
It's a way.
It's not a
what
misstatement.
happened. It's back
We hired the
to
original
say the fact that
contractor
what happened.
for that price, you're the one who made a motion to basically have the other services. It's still within the ability of the city manager to provide those services as long as they're not below a certain amount of money. You made the request, you got the request unanimously. Anyway, Ms. Dean, you good?
I'm good.
Well, any other comments, Ms. Van?
And that's all comment that I have. Thank you.
I guess I want to add, I think maybe they're characterizing it as there was an operational adjustment based on our understanding of, you know, we had the work, we approved the work to be done, and for operational purposes, we corrected and we got a general contractor.
Well, but you know, if you're asking me if I may, Mayor, it's not a correction. It's just y'all chose to add an addition. It wasn't a correction because it wasn't an error to not have it.
Well, and I guess framed with the statement that it's not required by law.
Right.
That's correct. I mean, we did it, we asked for something else, and in fairness, to be able to move the project along, that was granted. Obviously, sometimes you grant things and it has an expense to it, but nothing within, that's outside the scope of somebody's authority.
Right, and I guess just for clarity, I think, you know, to Van's point, the liability piece, which was a part of the question with regard to is it state law required for a general contractor for projects, we have taken it upon ourselves as a city to make that, that was.
On that project.
On that one
On that
project,
project.
yes,
And we have a legal opinion from the city attorney that says, you know, that it's not required, on projects under $100,000.
So the liability piece has been addressed with the original question because we did approve for the additional services based on
Correct.
that other contractor.
Yep, and that's all done.
And that has been achieved. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is making that phrase amendment to the meeting minutes is kind of a wash because based on how we carried forward completing the project and getting the work done for the project, we've made that adjustment, so to speak. We do have a general contractor overseeing that project.
That's good.
But when was that general contractor overseas decided to brought in? Have it brought to council attention?
You made the motion, Ben. I mean, that's about as close to council attention as you can get. Are we gonna leave this on the agenda and let it pass or fail, or are we gonna remove it from the agenda?
Let's move forward and take a vote.
All right, we'll leave it on the agenda and see how it plays out. All right, presentations will be on service pins. They have those listed there. Item 3, we've already talked about flexible spending with Chris. Compensation study, I think there's some verbiage in there that says we'd like it to be starting in fiscal year 2022. Go ahead and approve the contract, but that's your start date. And any clarities, city manager?
No, that's good. I mean, July 1, they'll begin. We won't pay them till then.
That's
So
But we'll accept, because y'all have decided to approve it with the condition that it won't be started until fiscal year 22, nor will it be paid for until fiscal year 22. Is that right?
forgive me, I might have had a brain freeze.
Okay.
Are we gonna keep number 1 on it?
Well, the number 1 items will all be deferred. The
Okay,
number
that's-
2 item will stay.
That's my
and
question.
will survive on its own.
The WEX, we're deferring.
That's correct.
Okay, I just, that
No,
was.
no, 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 no,
Chance
no.
to-
The WEX, the FSA.
Yeah, the FSA. We're
Oh,
deferring
okay, we
that.
are deferring. That's
We're
right. I'm sorry.
Deferring that because there
Deferring.
was a little bit of
Gotcha.
follow-up
So we'll keep
that
that.
can be provided.
All right.
On the health thing,
Yes, the
The
FSA.
flexible spending.
yeah, I think he stayed with his comments on that. And so really the question comes down to if the theory of a flexible spending account is you use it or you lose it, which is most of the answers. It does appear by statement, I'm not sure by fact, but by statement, that if somebody left some money in there, theoretically you should have lost it anyway. But that program may have allowed you to carry it over. In the event that it did allow it to carry over, then how do they deal with that? Because you now move on to the new one. There'd be some interesting concepts there. One would be, you know, obviously you don't want a scenario where the person just leaves it there forever. You want to say use it. And maybe the answer is we paid both. Let's say, John keeps his, and there can't be that many employees. To just say, okay, well, these people allow John to continue, the city paid John's section for one more year, and then tell him to stop, right? And to carry it over. So technically, we'd be paying two of them twice for the new plan plus the old plan. I don't know any reason why somebody would stop
So,
you from.
so if you carried over, for another year, wouldn't it be,
Well, technically, you'd be paying for that.
But you're paying $4.50 per employee per month in the in the new plan, and $5 per employee per month in the
Right,
new.
slight difference, but what I'm just saying is,
The
let's
old
say I
is
keep
$5.
paying the guy the $5
So
for
yeah,
the
you
old
could pay them
plan,
both for a year.
And to say, well, otherwise, no matter what, aren't we always gonna be here? I mean, if they do
No,
carry it over,
unless
that
you just-
person, obviously, and there might only be like 4 or 5, but forever, that person could sit there and go, I still got $500.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
And
I guess,
then you're stopping the city from making progress. And at some point, you gotta say, cut your losses, do what you're supposed to do, and we'll do what we're supposed to do. Maybe there's something in there that actually works. So we could defer it and give Chris that chance to say, hey, let's treat it like it's $500 of our money. How can we creatively try to keep that in their balance? And then, obviously, the first part is to remind people you have it in there in the first place.
and how
you
are
use
they
it.
gonna cancel it out? How are they gonna get
Yeah.
out?
yeah.
And
So
until we
there
can buy them some
isn't-
time.
There
Yeah.
isn't an unintentional loss on the employee based on a change of a plan, because my question is kind of like, okay, so if it's $4.15 with this new provider, we were paying was that 85-cent premium so that the employee could carry it over? Is that the difference in price? I mean, just kind of understanding a
He
little.
said that,
I think
the
it's
service,
services.
he more concerned of the service, look for the service,
Yeah,
He
yeah.
wasn't-
Price was secondary. But we can ask
So
him that.
just the question may be,
Right.
what is the cost to maintain both plans for one more fiscal year?
Well,
before we-
let's see if we don't have to do 2 in its totality. Let's just see if we figure out, let's say there's 5 employees that are gonna have some carryover. I'll pay for those 5 employees and see if the old plan will say yes. Why not?
But before all that, should we ask ourselves, is it worth it for the city paying for those kind of stuff for another year? Instead of, you have 2.5 months and just go ahead and do whatever you need to do and just be over.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm trying to, there appears to be some concern.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
and
let's
are you
assume
creating
that-
more,
How much we talking about, $300 in that plan and
Well, that's the question.
wasting the money,
Maybe.
wasting city money to carry,
Yeah, and maybe.
that thing
maybe.
over.
But
Make no sense to me.
let's defer it for at least 2 weeks and see if,
Right, we'll get
Which is
some
separate.
questions.
that's a
Yeah.
question there.
Okay.
and to come up with something that matters.
Okay, gotcha.
And
I'm on.
I think he also said you could have some discussions that wouldn't be based on per person, so you wouldn't know who the person is,
Right.
right? And be able to say, really, what kind of money are we talking about here? If our savings is greater than what's sitting in their account, I think we can figure out how to make that work. If somebody's got $10,000 piled over there because they want to do some braces or something, then maybe not. But braces aren't $10,000.
You said that, I think.
There's not a lot
it's
in them,
different.
so,
Okay, yeah, deferring isn't gonna hurt, but let's, so I believe in, but let's see if there isn't some flexibility in that flexibility account. See if we can earn some things there. All right, so we've had conversations about the study, okay, public restrooms, and we know we're gonna get into this really good. And this is the restrooms over at the section, and basically we talked about this, I think even at the planning session, but 13 grand, basically put them back in place, is that what we've got?
Yes, sir.
Any
No,
objections?
that's 13 was for the compensation study.
I'm sorry, my-
2005.
I'm just gonna have to break down the classes. Number 5,
I mean,
these restrooms are the ones in.
The district,
district,
not the section.
Okay.
Underneath there, and it's basically just replacing the porcelain and things like that.
okay.
So, I'm gonna defer back to the meeting on Saturday. When we asked to have a summary or of where these funds are coming from and all of that, we didn't get that.
By today? No, ma'am, we
Yeah,
didn't.
so,
But are we pulling this one from Splosh, though?
Yes.
Yeah, well, let's see, that's what it's gonna, the motion includes the consideration to come from SPOS 2014.
And we don't have any money left in 2008.
I mean, yeah, you can make it 2008.
Because that one is specific to that district anyway. One of the projects was specific to that.
It's the number 3,
Yeah.
so we could do SPOS 2008 in the motion instead of 2014.
Well, and ultimately, I mean, we need the restrooms after we finish, but what we're still looking for is some idea of where we are and kind of what we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just
Kind of,
so important at this point.
Find
It's
out
not
where we are.
that we're going in a good direction with some momentum, and we understand rehabbing, what's out there to make it an asset. We get that. But, just being able to take a snapshot of where we are and understanding, how much farther we need to go, we still don't have that. And that should be a priority to get to the council.
We would have never been able to do it from Saturday to Tuesday, right?
Well, that wasn't my comment.
Okay, yeah.
No, we'll,
But we'll have it for you, we'll send it, if it doesn't get done by May 11th, which it shouldn't take that long, we'll certainly send it once we get it done.
So we understand we want the work done, but can we put it on?
So Mayor, I have looked into all the agenda minutes from January 26th up until today. I don't see the motion that we voted for the general contractor to relate it to the Red House.
well, we know we did that.
Sylvia, could you point it out when did we voted for the contractor to oversee the project?
No, well, man,
That was actually in 2 parts. You remember we did the exterior plus we did the interior on the Red House and the Green House. Both of those have passed. If you're asking me the specific date, recently, but day, I don't know.
well, if I may, I think, and Councilwoman, if I'm wrong, please correct me, but she's referring to the January 26 minutes again. So in the motion, it should have said that you were requiring a general contractor. That's the sentence in red that I added for tonight. So it's the same thing as, if you guys are voting on it in the regular meeting, you will vote on that amendment, yes or no?
Plus, we also had supporting documentation in
Yeah,
front of us, right?
but it was not the greenhouse. It was only the motion for the red house. It was the only one that included a motion to require the general contractor, which is why we hired one.
Okay. Because some of
But
these are
where
on the
was
agenda.
the motion, when was the motion that we voted for
Then.
hiring the contractor to oversee the project? When did we make that motion? When did we vote for
And
it?
on January 26th, which is why we have that one sentence to be added tonight if the council chooses to amend the minutes.
Well, some of these we'll just have to pick up as we go through.
Well, I do want to just point out one thing, and another, in the corrections of the agenda in the work session didn't get updated. I'll make sure that doesn't happen again, but the strata, remember the strata is not on the work session representation of agenda items, but it is on your actual agenda.
Yeah, we're- Correct.
hey, well, either put us in the conversation or let.
Oh, I'm sorry. Y'all would have been much better at the conversation than me. All right, so
We're
let's
just like-
see.
Okay, I'm leaving at 9, hurry up.
So we,
Where are we?
I thought that was, you actually said that. The retirement plan discussion, that was just a follow-up. Chris isn't here, we'll keep moving.
I mean, but in essence, everybody who, he gathered a collection of people. Marquita, Vaughn, you were on the phone call, right? Where we all were talking about the retirement plan and who would want to participate. And overall, the consensus seemed to be, because I was overhearing some of it, is that everybody on the phone call at least favored the new retirement plan, defined contribution.
And because it didn't cut anything off,
And because there's gonna be that one-time chance that whether you're in the defined whether you want the new one or you wanna switch from the old one, but once it gets set in, you don't get to change from time to time.
Yeah.
okay. All right.
So would that be okay to plan for that on the agenda next?
I don't know, just ask the question. Everybody good with that? If the discussion with the city employees says okay, and we know they have options of their own, we're good? And the employees that aren't here yet,
My concern is that have we get the advisory from the retirement attorney, and also who is going to manage the fund. Right here, Chris recommend one, but I think it's just like the very basic on everything we do. We should get something to compare with instead of just one single provider.
Do we know if he got more than one?
I'm gonna say because he typically always does, but let me not assume and let me find out tomorrow.
Yeah, he said the name of the company that's going to manage the fund, American Trucking. And I would say we would need to see at least the second, if we can decide the third, that would be good for us to compare. That's all that's cost, American.
Isn't that what he did already? Did he?
Well, what I think he did was that, but I don't wanna say without saying, so I'll just follow up with him tomorrow and have him send out an email to confirm.
Got it. All right, but if you have issues, put them in writing, let us know, so we can keep moving forward. And if they've had the discussions with the employees, and we know they have options, then if it turns out we have multiple proposals and things like that, then put it on the agenda. If it doesn't, have Chris, find a couple.
Gotcha.
How about that? Any other questions related to that? None? Okay, new business list, Bob? Who's coming to the city hall?
Val? Oh.
Sorry. Click it cleared on me. Sorry. I got it. Throughout cleaning, they're a Charm Solution janitorial company and People Health Exchange. 11:15 at the suite. So waiting on some new ones. But the good thing is the pending business that are ready to open is King Kong Milk Tea. They're looking at about a week. So finally,
The sign's up.
some more food. Yes, they size up and they have a van. I'll share with you the photo.
But didn't the U.S. Properties Group just sign another lease that didn't make our new business list because we just found out about it this week?
Crew.
The seafood, the
Yes.
seafood place?
They are located next to Burlington. They're looking to bring, it's called Silvers. If you
Oh,
Google it, Silvers, chicken and seafood. So it's like really awesome waffles.
Concept right from New York.
And the one that located in Mount Zion, is that the guy that came in and met with us that day?
Yes.
Did he locate over there? Or is that somebody else?
This is somebody else. I'll show you the photo.
Yeah, I think it's Silver Chicken and Seafood, and I'm wrong, it's not U.S. Properties Group, it's the Burlington Plaza.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where at in Burlington?
I think it's where the Viv, do you remember Viv's Seafood used to be over there, down from the
Oh, okay,
subway?
around there, by the, eat there, school.
Here's some pictures.
My X-ray vision is at the shop, so.
I don't need to
Next to
see, I don't
Subway.
need to see food, just show me.
Next to
Sure.
the subway by Weissman, on that plaza.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Can you make that available to us by email? Get a chance to see it?
So just forward it to them.
Okay.
It looks like a good visual. Nice one played up. Excellent.
Seafood and chicken. Can't beat it.
Grant writing services, had some discussions about that. City manager.
Yeah, so, just back into the history books, for anybody who doesn't know or never knew, we had a grants administrator prior to my being here, years ago, and, she has since, she left Morrow actually to work for the city of Alpharetta, where she worked for Alpharetta for 10 years, and she now, teaches, she travels across the nation to teach grant writing and grant management, but she does, as part of her side job, is she's a consultant for grants writing and management. So I had some discussion with Councilwoman Tran about maybe the interest in looking to bring on a grants administrator, which I don't feel like is the best use of our resources to bring one on full time. But this consultant is $75 an hour. And just so we're all clear, that $75 an hour for the work she does, they aren't paid based on what you win. She would do the work and she'd get paid for that work whether we win the grant or not. And then of course, any management after the grant award, because winning the grant is the easy part. Managing it through its cycle to through its lifetime, that's the tough part. So if we're going to get more into grant funding, which I feel like you all want to do, then we're likely gonna need somebody who has that very specific skill set to make sure it's all being managed correctly.
And each one of the grants that gets, we have to approve to go after the grant. So all we've got to just remember is, if we're asking for a $1,500 grant, obviously we're not gonna use it because the fees that she'll have to go after it would be greater than what we're receiving. So these are for the bigger plays.
Well, however, if she finds the $1,500 grant, she may get paid an hourly rate if she did the research and identified it, but yes, the actual applying for it, managing it, that's gonna be an open and shut case. But, because I think part of her value will be spending some time identifying grants that we don't have somebody searching for. And making sure that the criteria fit what we're looking for, be it an art project, especially with some of the things we're looking to do over at 5900 Reynolds Road. So whatever she does, whether she's finding it, whether she's applying, whether she's managing, her rate is $75 an hour.
And I know Amanda personally because we hired her years ago as my administrative assistant, and she did some stuff for us. And the mayor of Alpharetta hired her to do a conversation and didn't even have a desk for her, so he simply cleared off half of his desk and she worked on the opposite side of his desk for a while. But they've done a pretty remarkable job. But to be able to go out into the private world and do this stuff for a living.
And one of the things that makes,
Pretty
she
sharp.
used to live in Clayton County, she is, it doesn't necessarily matter to her frame of work, but she has connections to Clayton County. She's married to the son of Mayor Day from Jonesboro.
I was gonna ask that, is she related in any way?
But she's got, her credentials are good. She's a Missouri girl, graduated from Missouri. No, I do. So there was several parts of it. But anyway, she was phenomenal while she was here. And, I think it'd be a good opportunity. We just have to make sure that and of course, because the city manager has done a lot of grant work herself and been pretty remarkable in receiving us money. The idea is to be not so much redundant, but to be, creative in terms of how to use the approach, and to see what we can do to land it.
So this engagement is for how long?
Just-
It would be per project.
For as long as y'all wanted it to last, it's just while we engage her, it's $75 an hour.
But if you did it per project, which is kind of how it
Not
goes.
a contract.
Well, so per project, you mean like you would make a choice for her to work on a project versus?
Well, let's just say she goes after a particular grant,
Mhm.
and we want, and that takes a certain amount of effort. We would just identify what that grant is. Does that make sense?
So this is
I
an
don't
agreement.
really like that part.
Contract
I said
agreement.
that too much.
Because it makes sense, but it's not what I mean, but it may be what you don't mean. Because again, part of it may be that we use her to identify grants, not that once we've identified them. Because again, filling out the
No,
application is
yes.
the easier part, it's the
Yes.
managing it or finding it. So I just say that, and again, you're not obviously voting on it tonight, so it would be, if you want a grant professional looking for, applying for, and managing grants, she would be paid an hourly rate for those services.
So I guess, in wanting some level of, controls and accountability, I guess that's why I'm asking how long are we engaging her for? Because then it creates a time frame where you can look back and see, based on how much we spent on her services, how much have we truly been awarded? Do we need to continue in this direction?
And you could certainly put, we could add a time frame to the motion, or even ask her to add it to the thing. But, the minute you feel like you've spent too much money, you just don't use her anymore. But if you want it to more defined, then we could easily ask her to, it's $75 an hour for fiscal year 2022, or whatever,
Or is that, I think, maybe at the end of the year, how much did we pay her as
Yeah,
opposed to
we need to
what
look
was
back
our
to
awards
understand,
total?
And it's always a challenge on the front side, even when you hire. So you hire one, you've got all those legacy costs that go with it. And, sometimes the traction isn't very good.
And I will
But
say.
once it starts, the
Yeah.
pipeline is
But
pretty
having been a
amazing.
grant professional for many years and still doing a lot of that work, a year is an ambitious goal. Because most grant cycles come out once a year. So, it's going to be a lot to say you're gonna measure the winnings against the payment in a year. Now, I can see 2 years, But
Well,
a
I
year
just
might
say
not
you-
even get
yeah.
you the opportunity to win one based on the way grants are cycled out.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
if
been
you had
having a
to
conversation.
just arbitrarily go after somebody and just hire them, we'd still be making the same bet. First, it
Oh,
would
sure.
be inexpensive to do, then you'd still have to make the argument. But at least in this case, with, a personality we know, they've got a record of accomplishments, or they wouldn't be working for themselves, because you wouldn't be able to afford to.
And I think maybe in the first year, we have an evaluation of how many applications were submitted. And then year two might be the not only the applications, but the payments versus the earnings. kind of.
I mean, just structuring it in a way that it's meaningful so that we do have some evaluation point. And we understand, yeah, we are winning, so let's keep going.
Yeah, I mean, does everybody feel comfortable with the two things I just said? At year one, we're evaluating the applications that were submitted, and at year two, we're looking at the more full equation of awards versus
yeah.
investment. So everybody.
I mean, it makes sense.
I mean, okay, very good.
Any questions, Ms. Turner?
And at this moment,
No question. All right, let's just continue and see if we can't move that forward. Charter amendment, planning and zoning chair selection, that's pending. Once it gets, publications necessary to come before the city council.
Do you want to hear the calendar for that or no?
I didn't get that in last council meeting. Why are we deferring that?
When you do an ordinance modification versus a charter modification, it's how it's actually advertised. One is slightly different than the other. All we're doing is waiting for the advertisement to catch up to the reality, and once that happens, you'll have it before the city council. All right, on the URA, we know that there's several discussions there. I did meet with the attorney for the URA DDA today in anticipation coming forward of projects where we'll have to work together. So it's time, right? We know some of that property's in our hands, some of that property's in other people's hands, and we want to try to make it as seamless as possible. If we end up going from an LOI to an actual lease, that lease is probably going to, not probably, will be in either the URA or the DDH name because of the flexibility of what they can do, right? But when it's still in the city's possession, the city has the ability to be able to do a lot of different things, but we're not gonna be able to work with the private sector to make it happen. We also asked the city attorney for just a general lease to form. In other words, the details are a political decision or a development or redevelopment authority decision. It's not a legal decision. So we get a blank lease and it says to form. Are you good with that? And then we handed that to the development authority attorney, in this case Greg Hay, and said here is a lease that's been approved through the city attorney to form, right? Take a look at it and see if you like the form too. The details of what you might put in it, such as term, amount of money, what the development authority does versus what the private sector does, that's all subjective to each individual section. But this is now starting to get some housekeeping laid out so that when things do move in the right direction, which we know they are, we're ready. And to also start to have some discussions that say some of that property might not be in the city's hands at this point. Which one is easier to handle? Is it easier to handle in their hands? For certain things, the answer is yes. And then there's certain things where the answer is in our hands. So prepare him for the opportunities that say when this opportunity arises, or even now, that probably is going to be turned back into the city's property up to a certain point, and then from that point, turned back into the private sector. So you're going to see some property swaps start to take place. Now, as we move forward, the question is whose are they? And we've got some question with the development authority, for example, is do we even have enough warm bodies on there to be able to make something work? Good question. And that was part of it, is you say, who is it? And I don't have the answer yet. So we'll have to do some quick research to see if we've got either A, vacancies, or enough people to even put a quorum on the table to make something work. So again, now you're starting to move to the next level because you have enough interest, letters of intent, for example. Now getting into more of the sausage, how it's made. We need to have those discussions, and we need to be able to say, which is what I told them today, let's not make it so that we're ready and then suddenly have to have 90 days worth of discussion about somebody else not being ready. So I think we're at that level, and this is just bringing you up to date. Not 100% sure on, you know, and again, irrespective of what happened in the past, quite honestly, who cares? We have to deal with what we have today, all the properties that we have, city owned or otherwise, to be able to either divest of them in an appropriate fashion or utilize them in an appropriate fashion, through multiple groups of people, just facts. So you're starting to see that moving. That's more just an FYI. There's no request in it. It's just simply saying, hey, this is what we've got in mind, and then kind of testing the tea leaves, because I haven't met with Greg before. I mean, I've met with Greg years and years ago, but I haven't met him since I've been here. And part of that was on purpose. We weren't ready, but I think you're close. And now you got to be able to have those good discussions. You know, knock the dust off the DEA.
The LOI that you referenced, have all councils seen? No, I mean, I know I have.
I'm not 100% sure. Now, remember, we've got several. So we have some interest in the shops. We have some interest in the Red House. We have some interest in the big White House, the Blues. We have interest in the 50,000 square feet downstairs. All of those projects have, I don't have a solid LOI. No, I do. The one for the Red House was the guy from there. So these are non-binding letters of intent. Right? That's the beauty of non-binding. Non-binding is basically, I have money, which we ask you for financials or something like that. I'm willing to, you know, move this project forward, subject to a lot of variables. And
You
you
said
go,
red, green, and White House.
not the green. The green, we have good discussions, but I don't have somebody who made the deal yet. Or they at least sent us something.
Okay, now you may be telling me something I didn't know. You're saying we got an LOI on the Red House, or you saw the financials for the Red House?
I saw the financials. but
Okay,
when
because I don't think we got an LOI.
But when I asked the guy,
Okay, I mean, I just want to make sure that the council doesn't think we haven't shared it with them, because I don't think we
Yeah,
got
that,
it.
and that's,
Yeah.
I'm kind of like.
I think his interpretation that it was because we got all his bank account
Yeah,
data.
and so.
You wouldn't send me that for no reason.
No, I'm fine, and so I just want to be clear, we didn't have an LOI that we haven't
Well,
shared
let's,
with the Red House.
let's just follow that up and just ask him for a basic one. We got his financials.
Yeah.
We know what it is.
So
he
it's
wants
so
to
that we
do.
can share it with the council, because we're certainly not going to share personal financial,
Absolutely.
And that's for the Red House?
the Red
Yes.
House.
And that was the gentleman from Las Vegas who's got some.
The guy you met out there.
High-end food, high-end cocktails kind of idea. More of an upper-end lounge setting, if you will, from the pictures we saw.
That's the Mediterranean. He's got, that's his food, Mediterranean.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, how, you know, they have different type of alcohol in Miami where, you know, it blows smoke up and all that cool
Oh,
stuff.
yeah. I got pictures.
Like
I
the
was
sugar
there.
factory.
The sugar factory?
I mean, like similar concept.
Oh, I
where you
should
make
say,
it
because that's the
smoke
place I
and-
went to in
Yeah,
Miami.
it was very nice.
So please share.
Well, we don't, but what we have is personal financial information,
Oh,
which we
yeah.
can't
Yeah,
share.
but let's
So what
ask
I'm
him for
saying is-
the piece, and he had some pictures actually.
His mom is having surgery, so he said he's ready.
Yeah, LOI and pictures.
Yeah, but because that's the next phase, right? You get in there and you say, in his case, because that building was close to ready, right? Then he would have to say, I'm gonna spend a certain amount of money to upgrade it, and that's on the inside especially. And that's gonna help us determine what's a fair price. One of the things you're gonna see us do to kind of reduce the risk to all parties is recommend percent of sales. And whether that's 5 to 7%, that's a pretty standard number in the restaurant industry. So that says, give me a base plus a percent of sales. And therefore, you end up with a scenario, the better he does, the better we do. But on the front side, they gotta make, you know, a fairly reasonable dollar value commitment to the property. And we just need to know what that is. You don't wanna, you know, give a property away and then not get a visual that somebody goes in there and spray paints all the walls black and just call it a day. That was probably a fail. But somebody who does what they said they're gonna do, take it all day long. They would add a pretty substantial amount of money to your value.
So Val, let's review and make sure that every LOI we have, that the council has a copy of.
All right. So those are the ones that we know, and then, you know, obviously the engineering was just turned loose, so we've got some things moving there. Most people have seen the different design elements that we have, right? Whether it was for the outside of South Lake Mall, the stuff from Dean.
Yeah, well, and put it in my presentation on Saturday. And I don't know that we, and we can email it to anybody who wants to see it. The concepts for the exterior that had the Iron Age on one side, and but we haven't gotten the updated one, which will include exterior, when you turn around the corner, to have the 3 individual retails.
And again, these are good marketing tools that have allowed us to be able to get somebody to at least tell you yes. Without these and without the people that were involved, let's just say we haven't gotten anybody looking at us in a long time, right? So we must be doing something right, because you've got a few folks willing to spend some money.
Are we doing a concept, like we've rolled out a lot of concept designs, is that coming out of council contingency fund, like how?
Well, the dollar amount is relatively small, so some of it has come out of just, say mine, or it may be in somebody else's budget, but the more we do, the more we'll have to look at where it's coming from, of course.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, with me, I think we've done the 5900 Girls Road, the Strata, and the exhibit space, and that's it. So we're looking at maybe $15,000 total.
Yeah, because we don't own very many, we won't be spending.
Yeah, once y'all vote on it, if I
they-
can't find
they
anywhere else,
kinda come
something
in.
else.
So,
Well, yeah, but just understanding, it's been good information, but just, asking for funding questions.
absolutely.
So just connecting the dots.
Yeah.
And we'll need it. And some of this we were having a discussion today about the Reynolds property, right? It's kind of stuck, right? We got to try to unstuck it. And
I'm stuck.
then we've got a tenant that is going to be asked to vacate, and that'll be helpful. I was able to get a lady who called me today in my private capacity about a dancing area for kids, and
A what?
dance studio.
Oh, dance studio.
And they do some of it now. Then the question is, normally I'd say, I don't have the space for it, I'll pass, I don't know, but then, your other hat kicks in and goes, what exactly do you have? Because, we got a gymnasium over there, we got all these other things, you're telling me you've got so much, demand that you.
How much space does she need, for the studio?
Probably 3,000. So that puts a whole different level of something in
That's a
play.
lot for that one.
Well, and I didn't ask her specifically what type of dance. Sometimes roof heights matter.
Well, so it's not whole
folks
dance,
who
it's kids.
do some other things. But it sounded like kids, and you're like, well, to be honest, if we do a gymnasium and we upgrade that, and that person might be doing partial basketball, but there's some room over there, maybe, that would also be helpful. Don't know.
How long is the COVID testing gonna go on in the parking lot?
Well, it's really sort of without end, but, we've had some discussions with them because it's gonna have to be moved for Juneteenth and Freedom Fest. They intend to leave it out there for as long as it's necessary. But originally, they said at least through the summer, but tests are declining, and so it may end up being earlier.
Well,
But
you saw something today on the news that basically said the governor was gonna pull back the vaccine scenario from the massive sites he's doing, just simply because the demand is now dropping. I don't recommend we pull back out, because I got this feeling on.
Yeah, but we had 20 appointments today and 8 cancellations, and eventually we will run out of resources to identify new people.
Yeah.
So can we move the testing to the parking deck, like where it started originally with the pandemic?
I mean,
There's no
that would be
facility.
fine for us, I'm sure, but maybe that's.
That
a
way we
question
won't
for
have to worry about
There's no facility over there.
moving it.
For the parking deck, where we had the testing with the national
That was
guard?
the first testing site that we had, the parking
I
deck.
think it was all, wasn't it all guys?
There's no restrooms. over
All
there.
guys?
We had porta potties. Yeah, that was our commitment to the testing site.
Wasn't it, guards that was over there?
National Guard.
Yeah, National Guard.
So those were guys. I think we have ladies over
I mean,
here.
I'm sure there's some National Guard folks that are women. I don't know what you're saying.
I'll
You
let
lost
y'all handle that.
They know what I'm talking
No,
about. And they know what I'm
just
talking about.
asking the question,
Yes, ma'am.
That's actually a good idea.
Unless they had porta potties or something.
Old Town Morrow, yeah, we talked with some folks today about a night market. That's gonna need a lot more work, based on what I saw. They had a pretty good opportunity in a different part of town, but they spent an enormous amount of money for only a 3-day event. and I don't think we got the ability to pull that off. So then the question is, can it be done here? Well, and the irony was, you liked the presentation. The lady that was there really spent a lot of time on the diversity of the food and really bringing, really like home run type of marketing.
Cover your ears. Savor the world.
God, I would hope that doesn't come back.
That's what I told you, cover your ears.
But,
Yeah,
that is funny.
that sounds
It is
good.
funny.
But
I think it's hilarious.
didn't even cross my mind until right now.
Of course it did.
Speak. But the
We need a bell.
point, or is this Mortal Kombat where you sit there and go, kill? I don't know what they say at the end, but whatever it is. Well done in terms of her concept, slight modifications, because it's kind of like pulling back, the destruction of something.
So,
And
do I
you
hear
gotta
you say
stay
that
away
you
from
think
that.
it's not gonna happen this year? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I don't think so.
Okay.
They'll have to go back and they're gonna walk out to the district as soon as the meeting, because they left right before here. I know he's got the capability.
What kind of money were you talking about?
Scary.
Oh, I see.
On the proposal they had on the front side, that was just an absolute no, just not happening. So you needed, well, first off, it was comparable to somewhere else, and you asked the basic things, what did you spend versus what did you receive, and all the answers out of that were just no. Even for themselves, you'd say, well, you lost your shirt on that one. Are you sure you did? And it just held it in a parking lot. And you're like, that was terrible, and they haven't seen the district in months. So you gotta go out there and say, and one lady had not seen it at all. You say, really need to go out there and see what you have, because she has some pictures and, some
But
graphs.
I thought this was the night market that drew so many people, and you're saying they still lost money?
Somebody spent $250,000 just to give you a number, okay? And you're like,
Is that-
how well did you do over 3 days? And the answer wasn't a clear one.
Oh, I see.
Which usually means, well, that was a problem. So you're going, don't do that. That's, you need much more succinct as to how you would do it here. So you can't compare us to something else that actually was visually very appealing, but that would be a tough number to reach. And so you have to have something that's a little bit more tailored to Morrow, Georgia. And I
At
like
least,
the
at
fact
least
that
the
it was.
first year, until you build into
Oh,
it.
yeah, but it was very inclusive. It certainly was a regional draw. And they brought, additional games, almost like a carnival type of game set, as part of the mix. Certainly something to strive for, and components of it, I think, would be very strong. But this would be one I'd like the private sector to take the lead on, and us to play an ancillary role behind it. And that's where it starts to make you nervous when they throw out big numbers. But I don't think the government was involved in the 250. So you gotta, somebody raised some serious money. They did a ticketed event, they fenced it, they charged you $10 to get in, things that we're not quite ready for. And I don't, the district would be interesting because it's contained, but we're used to having things where you get in for free, and then if you want to use the services, then you pay. Like if I'm gonna ride a ride or eat food or something like that. So
the question, becomes, we have the desire to roll out so much, and I know that, as far as manpower resources for planning, it's very limited. But this space is always our number one, opportunity and resource. Do we try to figure out a way to your point you just made, scale it down to Morrow size, knowing that we have something larger to offer than most cities already?
Agreed. And that's one of the reasons they were leaving here to go take a peek. The marketing person he brought with him is used to dealing with people like Ricardo, a different level than us.
Yeah.
And you go, sweet.
Branded sponsorship.
Where you're getting something where, but they've gotta have.
We're talking about pull up 3 food trucks.
Yeah.
We got some tents.
Yes.
We got lights.
But, it's nice to have the right people in the room that might be able to reach that level. but they also have to know where we are today.
In fact, I think I told you that I haven't told everybody, you know, the car show that Karina has emailed you all about, that's coming up on May 8th. And, he just let us know, it's not on the flyer, nor did we ever talk about it. He is going to charge people for entry. And I told Karina, I said, I'm gonna let it go because it's so late in the game, but people who use our space for free don't charge people to get in, unless we authorize it. And I said, and, you know, how are they gonna, how are they gonna control who's coming in from all different arenas? I mean, I said, are they gonna put a fence around it? Which we know his answer is no. I said, you just think people are gonna politely come to the one table you got set up and hand you money instead of entering in 100 different ways? You know, God bless you. Hope that works out.
When did we get that?
The,
Car show?
yeah, we're not doing it, we're
I
allowing.
mean, were we sent that?
Yes, ma'am.
My
I
phone
think
died.
she may have even
When
sent
are we
it back
going
out
to
to
do
her.
the crosswalk?
I didn't get it.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
When is the car show?
May
Where is the car
8th, it's
show?
the district.
Okay.
I didn't get that. She just sent it.
Either.
We'll send it out again. And I mean, the guy asked to do it several months ago. Remember when we're trying to promote the partnerships of people coming and doing their event, they pay for everything. It's, you know, promoting the area just like Cinco de Mayo. But, anyway,
Well, that
he just,
district is actually fairly easy to control. If you got somebody on the back, somebody on the bridge, and somebody on the other side.
if he's got somebody.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
again,
It's
and
not-
I feel like if the council would need to decide if people are getting charged to get in there.
Well, and we mentioned that to this gentleman too, while he was there, you know, we know at Decatur and some others, they set up their square and they've got the ticketed events and it doesn't interfere with the businesses. Today, when you don't have any other businesses out there, I'm not sure it really matters as much. You're trying to get exposure. Any exposure we can get would actually be great. But long term, when you have, you know, a real use, in other words, we're turning the fountain on and, you know, you want to take your child over there to be able to, you know, eat some ice cream, play in the water. Being that restricted may not be our cup of tea at that point. Or the business community saying you're shutting down my
But
ability.
again, I think it should be a council decision.
But we're not promoting that, are we?
I mean,
They did a flyer or something? and-
Yeah,
and
that was
we
there.
putting it
Yeah,
on
we're
They,
there.
just
they,
backing
they
up
put
on
it
it.
all together, they did the flyer, they put it out.
Are we displaying it on the,
I think I did put
Marquee
up
and-
one on the, in fact, I told her to take it down off the marquee once I found out he was charging, because I don't want it to look like it's the city.
city, exactly,
Yeah.
charging.
yeah.
And you said
As long as
Karina
it's
sent
not
that?
No,
identified
did she not?
I
as,
just looked at it.
Okay, and it was on, I put it on Facebook when he first planned it, but again, I wouldn't promote it again.
But now, beauties of events like this, let's say the private sector does 100%, we just provide the opportunity. We're about to find out whether we can, you know, we got the steam to be able to carry it. Because, you know, right now, we're spending a lot of, you know, hotel motel tax money to do a lot of marketing behind the scenes and events. If someone like this can actually do it profitably, then he's gonna wanna be back. And that's where things will start to, because we'll have a proof. We'll be able to say, whether it's Cinco de Mayo or some of these other events where we can partner, and that should be
Cinco de
very
Mayo
helpful.
is charging.
No, not Cinco de Mayo, so it's truly a car show. Cinco de Mayo is free.
But I was saying that I
food,
think what she may have sent y'all was about Cinco de Mayo, asking any of y'all if you wanted VIP.
Yeah,
Oh, she did.
now that I have.
That may be my mistake, sorry.
Speaking of the digital billboard,
Yes, sir.
can you push on to get the deadline enough? I see they really drag that bit on that thing.
I'll have a conversation with you
Yeah,
first thing in the morning.
I'm watching it every day, and they put a few pieces of brick on every day, you know.
one brick at a time?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked to him yesterday and last week, so, but yeah, I mean, I had already told Billy we need to get this thing done. And that's why we don't wanna send him
Yeah, I
off on
mean-
these little splinter projects, because it takes him off of our big one.
Yeah, we were told that it would take, you know, it should be done a long time ago, but now we don't, not even halfway there yet.
I'll find out something tomorrow, get something.
Is there any other event in the near future that the council is not aware of?
It's everything on the calendar, right?
That's kind of a loaded question, Van. I think if we knew what it was, we would say.
Well, I think that,
Well, because just the council like to talk about that first time tonight. And my concern is that even though it's run by private sector, our goal is that to let our product, our district hotel to expose to public. So why don't we promote advertising that? Or why don't we not put have everyone aware of? The more participants that come, the more successful that it will be, and that's the whole purpose.
Val would have to look at that. When you sent out the schedule of events, was the car show on it? I don't know. I don't remember. So, yeah. And
Could
to-
you give the council a list of the event in the next 3 months so we can catch on? Because there are so many events that, just like this one car show tonight, that's completely new to this, and it's just not so far away from now.
But again, Val, we want to make sure that all of the events are included. So to your point, Councilwoman, it wouldn't be just for the next 3 months. You should see the events through the end of the year.
Right.
As we know.
Christmas and
Correct.
all of that,
Okay.
I think we got it,
But I don't think the car show may have been included, so we need to confirm that and send it back out.
So,
Kind of the rest-
may I ask, is she saying that we should promote the private as if it's a city?
Well, I think some events we actually should. In this case, if they're charging, they may not be. And I don't know enough about what they have, but maybe. It just, you gotta be a little bit careful
Yeah.
about using, I mean, the marquees that will be on the interstate, we know how that gets paid for eventually, right? So the business community pays you back. But your like city webpage, let's just assume that, the private sector's got a lot of different things on there. I don't know, I think that might be a little subjective.
Well, like Cinco de Mayo, okay, we're not paying the bulk of that, but we sent out postcards for it.
Yes, we did.
We're gonna put it on our marquee, and we put it on our Facebook page, because we consider that a partnership. And so the car show would have headed, it could have headed in that direction, but it just never took on a partnership. It's more, we were gonna let them use the district to do their event. And especially now, once we found out they were charging, I took it off the marquee. Because I just don't want people to think we're charging for our events.
So are we getting calls about the events?
Yeah, moving forward.
You're going to call him? Or
Oh, that would be calling Karina.
Karina,
About the
oh,
event.
okay.
Well, and it might be that we just let them know, if it's a free event to get in, then we can facilitate helping you market. If you're gonna charge for the event,
Yeah.
then our limits are probably greater than that.
Well, not only that, but it may change our decision about letting you use the space for free. That's the other part. Our partnership is a free space.
Yeah, so that's something,
Yeah.
we can, we be careful in the future when we open the door to allow vendors to come in to have an event. What would it be that, what is our responsibility and the restriction of whether they sell tickets?
Well, and some of these folks, that is how they're making their money.
Sure.
If I can bring 1,000 people here and pay $10 a piece, $10,000, that's gonna help offset, my real cost. If you get past that, somebody's got to either pay to park the car there or pay for a food vendor, and you might not get the sales you need to be able to support that. Another
Well,
time.
and-
Like they have a
If
concert or
the
something.
council wants that to happen, or the forum to be either way, then that's fine, but I think it's like, when you're saying you're gonna have a car show, you're gonna have cars out there and people can come, and then sort of decide, oh, you're gonna charge money, we need to know that, we will now know that up front, because the council needs to decide, are you gonna extend this opportunity to have a free space? And of course, we're always gonna deal with trash and stuff like that, but, it doesn't really cost us a whole lot other than a couple of $1,000s. And we want thousands of people, hundreds of people out there at any given time in a way that doesn't cost us too much money. That's a good thing.
Well, we'll see how it goes. We're about to find out.
I think it changes the framework of a partnership,
Yeah.
because, we've had conversations in the past, even with what is now called the district. We have an event center for profit, so,
Yeah.
if you wanna charge people, contact Warren and we'll have him schedule you.
So, do we have like a limit per year, how often we will allow the return of,
I think this is so early in the stages.
And when you have businesses in there, that's
Yeah,
something you're gonna have to worry about.
yeah,
and-
they wanna come, like once a month and do
Oh,
one of
no,
these?
yeah.
We wouldn't allow that, right? And they charge, okay.
The only other thing that's really there, if you start to go down this list a little bit, we know we got some residential property, we really haven't moved that forward. Board appointments, I'm not so worried about the housing authority, that's probably gonna be sitting for a minute. The development authority, we gotta dust it off and figure out what we got. And then, what you've seen us do is rather than just have some extensive list under just the regular work session items, you got Exhibit A and Exhibit B. And these are basically the projects, the economic development projects and initiatives, or the public works projects, and those should be laid out. And we can look at those, and you can have several discussions about what's on there. But those should be changing as either the city accomplishes them, or we come up with them and lay them out. So there's a lot going on there. And in terms of that, most of that's for your information. Hopefully it doesn't stay static, that we keep it updated, so that, projects are actually being accomplished. Trying to look at anything I see here. And some of that was talked about at Saturday's meeting, so I don't know that any of that really becomes relevant yet.
I would like to update you on one thing.
Sure, go ahead.
Just that, hopefully, considering that the mayor will agree to call it early next time, is that we could, start to interview candidates for police chief on May 11th.
Okay. We got somebody to interview that you want to see. Let's, bring them soon.
Well, I will be bringing you.
How many
my phone.
candidates do we have so far? We have been posting the job for a very long time.
Yeah, and we have lots of candidates. You're obviously not going to be interviewing them all, but you are likely to interview it, assuming things work out that way, as many as 5.
Okay.
So,
Easy enough. Well, let's bring them and see what we can do with them. Any other questions for the cause? There being none,
Cause we gotta go.
5 minutes in. Meeting adjourned.
Cause we need to go.
Hey, Billy, you should stop by the welcome center on the way out and see if those lights are working.
Yes, ma'am.